Yeah, perfect. We'll just keep recording. It doesn't matter. Our chat can be at the beginning or I can cut it or leave it. But I thought, Jim, what I thought about my own video was, in the end, it wasn't a vision of the union. It was my rant on how I've been treated.
Yes, yes. So there's an element of that there, but that is what informs your view of the vision for the future. So therefore, the two are connected. Yeah.
And I didn't want perfection. I'm so impressed with myself. You know, trade unionism coupled with Toastmasters, and that's what I want to do in this thing. Hey, Brother Bunja, one of our speakers is here.
Yeah.
And welcome, Dr. Peaks. Greetings.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Bunja. Have you got your speech sorted, Brother Bunja?
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum assalam. Yeah. Have you got your speech sorted? Because you're one of our 3 speakers. Oh, let me do screen share of the big picture. I want the big picture so people know what it's all about. Yep, got the picture. So, Brother Bunja, we're looking for what's his name? Like, you know, good things about your union, like the hospital visit, anything that makes you different from UK ones. And I know you do such a yesterday, Brother Bunja, you know, Brother Akish and Brother Shingi, they were so impressed with you, and so was I. I think you did such a dignified job there, and most people like how you are feeling. Jim, what happens is people say, well, if they don't want me there, I don't want to be there. Because there's 2 ways of going about it, isn't it? Do you want to be in the bus, you get your own bus, or do you fight to be in the bus and at the, you know, have equality?
Yeah.
That's right. There's 2 ways of doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, Brother Bunja.
Yeah, no, it's fine, Aisha. We have good things to say anyway, so it's not going to be a long speech. It's just going to be short, just going to the points. What is, you know, how we come about with our membership, how, you know, how do we get money, you know, those type of things. Just a brief introduction, you know, what the funds we have, the Solidarity Fund, welfare, what do we do with those funds? People who are sick, are admitted in the hospital, people who are referred outside the country, you know, we contribute to help our staff. You know, at one instance, one of our staff failed to pay rent. Unfortunately, he was arrested before we realized it. He was sent to prison. So we have to come out to go and pay that money, and he gets out of prison and is back to work with his family. So those type of things that, you know, we do here.
Mashallah.
Those type of things, you know, at one point we have to say to the director of operations, we need a task force. We have to go all over the country, even villages where our people are posted. We look at how they stay there, the rooms they occupy, how they are feeding, you know, those type of things. And at the end of the day, when we came back, it was like, definitely we need to do something. So, and then they started giving them relocation allowances here and there. So all those are things that we did. So many other things. We defended people in disciplinary hearings who were on the verge of being dismissed. So, and we finally won the state. So we had lots of things that we have done, but it's all about, you know, coming together. If people don't come together, you can't fight. If you want to do it individually, it will not work. So to do away with racism, inequality, injustice, people have to come together, fight together to make a case. You know, those type of things. So,
Brother Bunja, we'll have to save your speech a little. Queen Larissa is here. So I decided, Jim, I'll be the host in the sense I will welcome Queen Larissa. Queen Larissa, we're so happy you're here. River is here and she's even showing us her face. So lovely to see her. Queen Larissa, may we see your face. I know why you like to call yourself Queen L now. It's like Queen B, isn't it? That's where the reference comes from. I think she's gathering her majestic self.
Good.
While we have, Marlene Walker.
Sorry, I was just switching my Wi-Fi. What? Sorry, I missed what you said.
I just said, I know where the Queen L reference comes from, Queen Larissa. It's from Queen Bee, isn't it? It's frozen. Don't worry. Oh, did you catch that? Larissa?
No, actually, it's from Queen Latifah.
I know. That's
Queen
where I took.
Latifah.
Yeah, that's where I took Queen Larissa from. But you said some people call you Queen L. So I was thinking more like, I'll pretend to be a saintly person. Brother Bunja, I've never heard of who Beyonce is. Somebody told me I'm such a good Muslim. But is it, I was thinking like Queen Bee, that's what they call her, isn't it? No? Let's leave it. Let's get back to politics. Marlene, are you from African Congress? Hello, Marlene. Hello, Sister Marlene. Okay, never mind.
Hiya.
Are you from African Congress?
That's right. That's
Yay, show us your face. See, Larissa. Royalty are here. Black royalties are here. May we see your face, Sister Marlene?
All right, in a minute. Give me a second.
For Larissa, anything is possible. It might look a bit few, but I think people who are here are really proud. And I think it's, what did you think of the poster, Larissa?
Good.
Which one?
Yeah.
The poster for yourself. Oh, maybe I should share the screen so that people know.
Can you see me?
We can see you.
Yes, we can see you. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Very
we'll
good.
share Larissa's poster.
So I've taken it off now. I don't like.
We love seeing your face. We love faces. That was your poster, Larissa. Maybe.
Sorry?
Yeah. This was the poster, isn't it, Marlene? That sold it to you. The poster.
Yeah.
What poster?
You can't see. Oh, there's the poster. Oh God, I can't do enough.
Can you see the screen share that? But I'm Jim Todd, and I'm working in Tanzania, which is why my internet's a little bit dodgy. So I turn my video off at any time. But I got involved with Aisha. I mean, I work for the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, got involved with Aisha there and realized that there's something here that we need to take out, or we need to publicize within the unions. And that is about the fact that unions are not now about equity. There's a lot of movements within the unions about fight for rights, about particular factions within unions, but they seem to have lost the view that we're about equity. And equity is not just about within the unions. It's not just about one union or other unions. It's about looking after the interests of everybody in society and making sure that we are going to treat everybody in an equal and just way. And so equity, I think, contrasts a little bit with the other movements within many unions for solidarity and fight for rights, which is trying to obtain an advantage for people within particular unions. And I think equity is not just about racism and religion, although that's the angle that Aisha started off with, but it's also about sexism and sexuality. It's also about disability and alternative abilities. It's also about environmental justice and things like that. And so what I thought, what Aisha suggested, and I'm just, sort of helping her with that, is that we needed to listen to people who have had problems with racism, with the different ways that discrimination have occurred, and from them and say, what can we learn from them and how can we develop ways so that other people in the same situation with other unions, other institutions can fight through and get their voices heard at the same time. And so that's why we wanted to have these sessions where we're listening to those ones who have got that, had that experience and have successfully gone through it. Okay, so as I said, I'm Jim Todd. I suppose the best thing I'm doing now is being a mentor to Aisha. Aisha, do you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll hear from everybody else in the room as well?
So yes, so essentially I set up this group because our rally, we invited up Sana Begum, the MP, and then she agreed. But in the midst of it, I mean, the complexities, we can never prove it, but the union, we had in-house victory at LSHTM, and I pretty much built it up as a Unison rep, but then they got rid of me, Unison, And it was, very much a discrimination. And it's about certain unions or certain branches who don't support their outsourced colleagues. They'll say, oh yeah, we want to end in-house. And it's one of the cruelest thing, and they never do. And, people now, one of our members, saying, why did I pay £15 all these years? Then we joined IWGB. I took, the seeds what I got. What I'm good at is essentially connecting people. What I'm good at is, for example, I put together this event. What I'm not good at is like, when people ask me, what is this group about? I'm like, But what you will see here is this relationship building. And I think it's so difficult to explain. And what Jim explained, how he's been helping me. So anyway, IWGB, the issue I had with them, which was really upsetting on so many levels, but we wanted to elect a Muslim officer because, we get issues like security officers being asked to come in on their non-training day, which is an Eid day, to do an Eid long, all day long training. And that's done with that outsourcing company and the white management within the school. We're talking like head of health and safety with PhDs, is expected. I mean, this is ridiculous. And when you point it out to it, you get usual structural racism, like, oh yeah, whatever. You have to tell people it's like Christmas. Why do I have to justify my own, as like Christmas? And then the other thing, they vote rigged our Muslim officer. We never got a Muslim officer. The motion passed, and then they say, oh, we need more votes. Then the other issue was, so then I was elected assistant branch secretary, a nice title, that went. I have nothing. I am nobody essentially, yet I'm a leader. So I'm all dressed up. No, I think, yeah. And then I've now gone to a new workplace and I asked, can I join the committee just to listen? Because let's face it, they're small fish. I'm not very big fish. They said, oh, we have to elect people at AGM. What do you mean AGM? And I think this is why I really appreciate and admire you, Larissa, and I mean it from the heart, is your tweets are like, and I think Melody, when she was here last week, she's talked about, having to tiptoe around. Why can't we say it how it is? And I think what you are doing is very special, is that you've got a platform, you've achieved it, you've got there, and you're being true to the people who need you to be true. You're calling out racism how it is. You're not being the politician and allegiances. I liked one of your tweets where somebody says, oh, I don't like this music being played. And you say, we'll play it louder. And I think, wow, president of NUS of Queen Larissa says that, wow. It gives us hope. And so, yeah, everybody gets rid of me. Nobody likes me. But I would come back to something. I never clash with Jim, but I think it's interesting you mentioned about range of different, equalities. But I think one of the least talked about, I don't know why Dr. Peaks left, but anyway, Brother Bunja and me being Muslim, I think the whole LGBTQ issue, how does it affect Muslims? And I think it's one of the least talked about. And I think it's a contentious subject for us Muslims. We either remain silent and move away from the world of equality. And I think how I've had to deal with this group when the challenges, not challenges of how do I welcome all human beings? And I just went to the basics. That long story I just told you, how did it make me feel? It makes me feel really hurt every time when I'm excluded, when I'm made to feel unwelcome. And therefore, how I, deal with LGBTQ, that as Muslims, we feel fundamentally goes against our faith, is to think, I don't want to make another human being feel unwelcome. They should have equal right to be in all places and to feel welcome as a human being. And that's all racism is about, to not hurt other human beings, and to recognize that we're all equal and human. That's it.
Thanks, Aisha. And I think that's the kind of personal recommendation that we have from there. So shall we, we've got three people who wanted to say something, who have something to say at this meeting. And also we're going to have other people discuss and bring in other views as we go along. So shall we start? What is the running order, Aisha?
We've got Shaza. I want to know where Shaza's from. And I'm sure she's come here because of Larissa. Hello, Shaza.
Hi, good evening.
Are we allowed to see your face?
No, because I've got my children here and stuff.
We can see them as well.
No, I don't want them on
camera. That's okay.
Are you from African? No, it's okay. Are you from African Congress?
Yeah, I am.
Wow.
Yeah, great. Okay. So Aisha, who's going to be the first speaker then? Is it Larissa that we're going to have first, or Bunja?
Which order do you reckon we should go for? They're all good.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, everyone is good. That's the whole point of this, is that we're all saying everyone's got a story to tell. And what we really want to hear is about how they confronted racism or any other discrimination and come through, and the kind of things that we have, we want to learn about to encourage others as well. Okay, well, shall we start with Larissa? Shall we start with you, Larissa? Are you happy to give us a little...
More than happy to jump in here, also because I think the team mentioned that I have to leave a little bit early, so yeah, it probably makes sense as well. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to jump in to share a little bit about my journey, but also about the fact that when we're talking about equity and liberation, it has to be inherently embedded into the work of unions. So I'll probably talk a little bit about NUS and what we're up to as well. So in terms of my journey, you know, throughout being part of the student movement, I've always found my home among, you know, the women, and specifically Black women, women of colour, who have nurtured and poured into me. And I think it's not just in terms of, you know, on a surface level finding that community, but also recognising that that comes with a Black feminist politic that is about not just care, that's like, you know, this kind of transactional care that we hear a lot about in the world today, that's been kind of co-opted by capitalism. But actually, what does collective care look like? What does it mean to radically care for one another? What does it mean to commit to one another's health, to commit to one another's well-being, commit to justice for one another? And so I feel very lucky to have been brought up almost through the movement by these incredible women of colour and Black women who have shown me what it means to do that every day. And my journey started in the feminist society at Warwick. It's called Warwick Anti-Sexism Society. And it was just a freshers rep when I was in first year at uni. And I got to organise with those folks, and you know, we would host things like Reclaim the Night rallies and you know, other protests, but also political education. And I think it was in those spaces, it was in, you know, the less exciting and spiky and almost fashionable moments, the less glamorous moments of the organising, where we were just making sure that one another were held, making sure that we were seeing the journey that we had to go on, and committing to that collectively, that I think was really important. And it meant that, you know, we were discussing, what does the thing that we're exploring in this text mean for our day-to-day reality? Okay, if we're talking about power dynamics in the abstract, let's apply that to our own organising space. Let's actually think about how that's playing out. Who has a voice here? Who has power here? Who is able to disrupt and you know, set the agenda for this organising space? And so I think that was really, I don't know, it was really impactful for me as I then moved through different spaces in the student movement. I went on to be president of the Anti-Racism Society at Warwick at the same time as being co-president of the Anti-Sexism Society, which was a little bit crazy. But you know, it was knowing that we could actually do those and come together for those forms of resistance. But at the end of the day, the community building was what was going to sustain those spaces. And I think sustain is a word that I use often. People, like everyone in the team at NUS, is probably sick of hearing sustainable organising spaces, because it's all I say all the time. But I say it because, and I say it repeatedly, because I think so often these movements treat us as disposable. They bring us in, you do the work, and then you are kind of hung out to dry, unless you keep doing more and more work, unless you keep burning yourself out. So either you are disposed of, or you have to remove yourself from that space to, you know, as a form of protection. So I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that because I am an abolitionist, because I believe in transformative justice, because I believe that no one is disposable. And And so coming into NUS, I don't know how much folks know about NUS, but we went through a massive reform process. And, you know, we essentially gutted all of our infrastructure. We didn't have the same links into organising that we used to, and we were rebuilding them from scratch. And essentially it gave us the opportunity to do that in a way that was really, really intentional. And don't get me wrong, a lot of groundwork for this moment was laid by the Black women, the women of colour that came before me. Folks might or might not know that my predecessor was a Black Muslim woman, her predecessor was a Black woman, and her predecessor was a woman of colour as well. And so we have a long history in NUS of being led by, you know, Black feminist politics. And so when I'm saying I got the opportunity to shape this, make no mistake that I could not have been in the position to shape this were it not for those foundations. But it was in being able to look at our union and say, okay, what does it mean for the student who is a parent or a carer who doesn't have a load of time to give, but wants to get involved? What does it mean for a student who is already working, you know, X number of hours a week on top of study, who is struggling, who is trying to send money back home, all of this stuff, who wants to get involved? And going through all of these situations, making sure that, you know, in critiquing, you know, the institution and the way that was violent, we weren't reproducing that same violence in our own spaces. And you know, I think my grandparents often say, like, you can't look at the speck in someone else's eye without looking at the log in your own. And I think we had to carve out our log. You know, you have to carve out your own log, and that's really, really important in order to actually get to a space where you're able to reimagine. Because I think one of the pitfalls of the left in the UK is we're consistently critiquing the current without building the future. And I say that to say that we have a really strong idea of the things that we dislike about where we are. We have a really strong idea of what is going wrong. But because we're unable to lay foundations that are liberatory, because we're not applying things like emergent strategy, which is essentially living and breathing the world that we're trying to create in the everyday, because we're not doing that, I think it limits the capacity that we have to look beyond the kind of current context that we're in and the current, you know, limitations that we have. And that's hard. It's hard to move beyond. And I think, you know, we have a lot of solidarity from a lot of unions, and I'm not bashing them in any way, shape or form, but I do think it seems that there is kind of a blockage there in terms of how people can go on these transformative journeys of political education, and really think about, like, what does a different world look like, and recognizing that even the greatest imaginations that we have from this current vantage point are so small and so reductive compared to what is actually possible because of those limitations. So I guess I'm rambling a little bit, so I'm gonna probably draw to a close pretty soon, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that means for NUS. And so we're at the moment building up for a student strike in March, which is very exciting. But it means that in terms of going back to the point of this entire discussion, which is about equity and liberation, and what does it mean to put justice at the heart of all of this, we went back and forth for a long time about, okay, do we set manageable demands that we can ask of someone? Because I think for a long time we've gone around, we've held up placards asking for someone else to deliver something for us, even though we know that that thing is, like, not gonna fundamentally change the power imbalances and everything, but those things are necessary, right? They make our lives more survivable in the short term. But because we're not actually like a trade union in a traditional sense, because NUS is up a little bit differently, we thought, actually, I think we're well placed to do the imagination piece, to do the expansive work, to complement those shorter term demands with something that is a little bit more up in the air, a little bit more intangible, but can hopefully track this broader journey and the liberation that marginalized people so deserve and need, and are like literally crying out for and have been for so long. And so, yes, we're talking about the things that NUS has traditionally talked about. We're talking about fully funded education that's free at the point of use for students, with kind of proper pay, pensions and conditions for staff. Yes, we're still talking about lifelong education that's there for us from cradle to grave and those more practical elements of that. But we're also talking about uprooting disableism in our education, and being completely unapologetic in hearing the voices of disabled students and the Disabled Students Campaigners Network, who have been leading this work for decades. We're also talking about building an education system that is part of communities that are committed to housing justice, climate justice, and health justice. And all of those, of course, are kind of internationalist endeavors. And so part of our journey is building global solidarity with the strike and talking about what does it mean to be free to live, to be free to exist consistently around the world, and thinking particularly when it comes to climate justice about the complicities that we have as a movement when we're signing up to these institutions, putting in our applications, only to then find out that they are riddled with the rot and actually funding the destruction and devastation of the global south through complicity in the arms trade, through funding ties to fossil fuels and so on. And so running kind of a divest to decolonize campaign at the moment, which complements the broader climate justice vision there. And then health justice, which of course is on the agenda more impactfully than ever in this moment of the pandemic. And I say this moment because the pandemic continues, much contrary to what many would like us to think. And when it comes to health justice, we've definitely been thinking about what does it mean for different groups of students. The health crisis for trans students has been absolutely abominable. The health crisis disproportionately for people of color has been absolutely awful. We've seen the kind of gaps in the system exposed and exacerbated through this pandemic, and that doesn't mean they weren't there before. It just means that they're even clearer now. So how do we form a resistance that talks about everyone's right to access health provision and to be healthy and happy and safe? And that kind of pulls me into the last area. And again, this bit is 100% about equity and liberation. And we're talking about building education that is rooted in safety, liberation, and collective care. And when we say that to some people, they're like, what does that actually mean? Like, what would that even look like? And it's fundamentally that right now, people go into these institutions that are supposed to be about learning and growing and happiness and freedom and all of these great things. And actually, most of the time, they come out more burnt out, more unsafe, more trauma experienced than they went in. Black students consistently talk about the fact that these are exhausting processes to go through. Women on our campuses have just been through another rise in spiking incidents at universities. Students in colleges are being told that prayer spaces are being shut down, and all of this is happening at the same time. And so we can't just tweak at the edges of this. We can't just say, oh, we'll reinstall that prayer space. We'll discipline the student who was racist. We can't just do those things, because of course we have to do those things again to make these spaces more survivable in the short term. But in the long term, we have to have a broader commitment to the world that we're trying to create. And that world has to be rooted in safety, liberation, and collective care. So, and absolutely, Aisha, prayer spaces being monitored is a huge thing in FE in particular. And it's really worrying, particularly when you've got younger members of the FE student population who are essentially being brought into a system that normalizes this kind of surveillance and securitization. And that securitization is something that we're seeing everywhere in the education system. It is terrifying. The impact of the prevent duties, the impacts of the incoming secure schools, all of this. And I think that's why it's really, really important to bring an abolitionist lens to all of this work. And I think that is underpinning to all of our campaigns. So I'm going to close up right about now, but just thank you so much for the invitation to speak.
Please clap. One of the things I wanted was clapping. So if you could clap, that would be wonderful. Or clapping icon.
I don't know if that was a question about prevent that someone wanted me to answer. Yeah, sorry, is that about prevent? Yes, this happens with prevent. It also is expanding beyond prevent. So just to be conscious that prevent is absolutely, the prevent duty is absolutely disgusting, but because of how commonplace it's become, it's now expanding beyond that into essentially, you know, yes, criminalizing people for exercising their faith and belief. It's been particularly so for Muslim students. There was a survey that NUS did, I believe it was either 2017 or 2019, oh, I can't remember, but it was on Muslim students' experiences and completely unearthed how much this was happening. And I can share that in the chat if that is helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for having me.
Exactly, and as you say, prevent is just the tip of the iceberg, because everybody going into the educational system is dehumanized and crushed in some way, and we need to get the whole system to be much more geared towards equity and liberation and safety and learning, rather than this this current system. Yeah. Okay.
Can I just say something, Jim? One point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, what we say, the reason I was on the phone to Sister Donna, a woman I absolutely love, and I always thought, I'm going to be harsh, but I thought, why did she bother with the trade union for all these years? And actually, you know, a Black woman in her 50s, or those are, you know, or as I like to call other Black women in their 60s, who made a huge difference to me, because in central London, I didn't find many women in that age range who I could go to. Each time I was a temp being fired left, right, and center, you know, and somebody in the corridor. They're not all Black, but, you know, number of women were. And I think, you know, here is the celebration. I know Marlene, Shaza, Ebony, these sisters are here from African Congress. Let me tell you, Larissa, they're the hardest to recruit. I can go to many meetings and recruit people. You got no chance of recruiting them from African Congress, and they're all here to celebrate you. And I think it's that, you know, nobody set out to like, oh, let's, you know, help out Asians. It's the fact our, you know, like how I'm continuing, you know, and thank God, you know, all praise be to Allah that, you know, Jim helps me because of that. You know, I'm able to go on. I'm still, you know, it's a weird trade unionism, isn't it? They bully me, and like you said, you get disposed of. You help, you grow the campaign, you hand it over to somebody. They have their, you know, in-house victory, some Spanish young guy, whatever. Let's call him Jody or whatever. And you know, he goes off, he gets a new job, and you're written out. With the contribution you made, you're written out. You're disposed. Well, Aisha is not disposable, but more importantly, I think it's that, you know, older Black women helping me. And then I think today, me being able to celebrate that. And I think, yeah, and above all, recruiting African Congress. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple of questions for Larissa. Because I know that Larissa's got to go early. So therefore, if anyone has a question really about this whole regeneration of NUS and how it's created a new structure which is enabled the open.
So if Jim is on mute, can I cut in? I literally want to know one thing only. How did you get 5 Black presidents? I know you said overhaul, but if you could just explain it. And I know, yeah, sorry, Jim, I did cut you. And I just said, all I want to know is how did we get 5 Black presidents? And I know Malia, I think, took a lot of stick, isn't it? Because she was kind of beat before her time. And I think, you know, I kind of get it now, living just the small world of, you know, my little achievements. Yes.
How do we do it? I don't know. So much of it is before my time, even, and I think it is kind of testament to a movement that wants a more radical politic, and I think there is a recognition that, like, the Black feminist practice is what is needed to, like, really bed down the work. And I think actually it would not have happened without the Black Students campaign within NUS, which, and I don't know, I think our liberation structures are quite different to trade union structures. So for example, now we run like one major national campaign, one major liberation campaign nationally as well. So there's like one education campaign, one liberation campaign, and they sit alongside each other. There's no differentiation, like, do you know what I mean? So our liberation organizing spaces are always equal to, if not stronger than, our other spaces. And yeah, that's just a commitment that we hold in the student movement. So I don't really know how to answer your question. I think it's just like partly structures, partly people, partly like where our movement's at. But yeah, I think it's a trend that I would like to see long continue.
And I hope today maybe gives us the hope, to say future of union is Black, and your, older Black